22 submarines, 200,000 plague-infected fleas. September 22, 1945, zero warning. Japanese High Command signed the operational order. Target, West Coast population centers. One admiral looked at the plan and said no. Here's why 200,000 Americans are alive because of a decision no one knows about. March 19, 1945, 0707 hours, 52 miles southeast of Kyushu, Japan. Aircraft carrier USS Franklin, CV-13, conducting strikes against Japanese homeland. Captain Leslie Gares commanding, 3,448 crew aboard. Two Yokosuka D-4Y Judy bombers penetrated combat air patrol, dove through clouds, released two 550-pound semi-armor-piercing bombs from 350 feet. First bomb, penetrated flight deck, detonated in hangar bay. 31 fully fueled aircraft exploded simultaneously. Aviation fuel, 30,000 gallons, became a fireball. Second bomb, penetrated two decks, detonated in ready room. 400 sailors lost instantly. What none of them knew, USS Franklin's devastation was filmed by combat cameramen, broadcast across Japan within 72 hours. Imperial General Headquarters got exactly what they needed. Proof that one carrier, struck by conventional bombs at the right moment, became a crematorium. And if conventional explosives could do that, what could biological weapons accomplish against undefended civilian populations? This operation stayed buried in SCAP archives for 50 years. The weapon deployment plan was explicitly forbidden by international law. Japan had signed the 1925 Geneva Protocol prohibiting biological warfare. The admiral who refused the order destroyed most operational documents before surrender. This account draws from declassified Supreme Commander Allied Powers documents released in 1995 and War Crimes Tribunal testimony from 1946 to 1948, preserving a critical chapter of Pacific War history that nearly changed everything. Understanding Japan's biological warfare program and the internal resistance that stopped it provides insight into desperate tactical calculations of spring 1945 and the moral courage of officers who refused catastrophic orders.
To understand how Vice Admiral Takijirō Ōnishi prevented Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, we need to go back to Pingfang, Manchuria, 1936. Pingfang District, 15 miles south of Harbin, Manchuria, 1936. Population, 30,000. About to become ground zero for Japan's most classified military research. Lieutenant General Shiro Ishii, Imperial Japanese Army Medical Corps, age 44, selected this location for Unit 731, officially labeled Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. Actual purpose: biological weapons development. Ishii wasn't a fringe scientist. Kyoto Imperial University graduate, 1920, top 5% of medical school class, published 15 papers on bacteriology before age 30. Army Medical School instructor, 1928 to 1932. Methodical, technically brilliant, completely ruthless. His proposal to Army General Staff in 1932, biological weapons could neutralize China's 300-to-1 numerical advantage. One infected water supply could eliminate more Chinese soldiers than a division of artillery, cheaper than bullets, harder to defend against than bombs. Army General Staff response: proposal violates Geneva Protocol. Japan is signatory. Request denied. Ishii didn't stop. He went around them. Direct appeal to Prince Yasuhito Chichibu, Emperor Hirohito's younger brother. Year 1933. Ishii's pitch: Western powers already developing biological weapons in secret. Japan must achieve parity or face strategic disadvantage. No evidence supported this claim. Chichibu believed him anyway. Imperial authorization: secret bioweapons program. 300,000 yen initial funding, equivalent to $2.1 million today. Location: classified. By 1936, Pingfang facility complete. 150 buildings, 6 square kilometer complex, 3,000 personnel. Experimental subjects called Maruta, logs, because that's how accounting classified, not humans, lumber. What Imperial General Headquarters dismissed as theoretical research was about to become operational reality. And in spring 1945, when Japan faced certain invasion, Ishii's 9 years of experiments would produce one weapon so effective that generals who'd rejected him in 1932 would authorize deployment against American cities.
Ishii didn't know it yet, but one admiral would refuse orders and destroy his life's work. By March 1945, Japan's strategic situation had reached mathematical collapse. American forces were destroying Japanese positions at a rate unprecedented in military history. Philippines Campaign, October 1944 through March 1945, 317,000 Japanese troops committed, 298,000 casualties, a 94% loss rate, 0 successful defensive victories. Iwo Jima, February through March 1945, 21,000 Japanese defenders, 18,844 casualties, 90% loss rate, 36 days until total overrun. Okinawa, April through June 1945, 100,000 Japanese troops plus 40,000 Okinawan conscripts. Estimated 110,000 military losses plus 100,000 civilian losses, 82 days until collapse. At that rate, invasion of Japanese homeland, Operation Downfall, scheduled for November 1945, would result in catastrophic Japanese casualties. Imperial General Headquarters calculated 20 million military and civilian losses within 6 months of American landing. Conventional defense strategies attempted. Strategy 1. Kamikaze expansion. 2,800 kamikaze aircraft committed to Okinawa defense. Result: 34 Allied ships sunk, 368 damaged, but Okinawa still fell. Aircraft production insufficient. Could only produce 1,200 planes per month. Needed 5,000 per month. Strategy 2. Coastal fortification. 900,000 troops redeployed to Kyushu beaches. Result: intelligence showed Americans' planned 14-division assault would overwhelm static defenses within weeks, insufficient artillery and anti-tank weapons. Strategy 3. Civilian militia mobilization. 28 million civilians trained with bamboo spears and agricultural tools. Result: no actual combat capability against mechanized forces, would only increase civilian casualties. None addressed fundamental problem. America had complete air superiority, unlimited munitions, and 10-to-1 material advantage. Conventional weapons couldn't close that gap, but biological weapons could. U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff meeting, March 25, 1945. General Douglas MacArthur presented invasion casualty estimates for Operation Downfall. American casualties, both fatal and wounded, 400,000 to 800,000, depending on Japanese resistance level. Admiral William Leahy's memo to President Truman: Okinawa casualty rates, if applied to homeland invasion, will produce American casualties exceeding total U.S. losses in European theater, 75,000 to 100,000 American fatalities minimum. What MacArthur didn't know: Japanese biological weapons program had already stockpiled enough plague-infected fleas to eliminate more Americans than were lost in the entire Pacific War, and delivery system existed. Unit 731, Pingfang Facility, operated 9 years before most Allied intelligence even confirmed its existence. Experimental methodology, documented in SCAP Report Number 78, declassified 1995. Pathogen cultivation in ceramic bombs, Uji bombs, designed for low-altitude release. Flea propagation in temperature-controlled environment, 4.5 kilograms of fleas per month, approximately 45 million individuals. Plague bacteria, Yersinia pestis, infection through blood meal injection. Field testing in Chinese villages, 1940 through 1942. Results from Changbei, Hunan Province, China, November 1941. Japanese bomber dropped ceramic Uji bomb containing plague-infected fleas over city. Population 50,000. Within 30 days, 7,643 confirmed plague fatalities, 21,000 plus symptomatic cases. Adjacent villages infected through human-to-flea transmission. Outbreak continued 4 months. Mechanism: plague flea bites human, injects Yersinia pestis bacteria. Incubation: 2 to 6 days. Symptoms: fever, buboes, swollen lymph nodes, septicemia. Mortality rate without antibiotics, 60 to 90%. Fatal outcome occurs 3 to 7 days after symptom onset. What made this weapon catastrophic? Secondary transmission. Infected humans develop pneumonic plague, airborne transmission through coughing. Person-to-person infection rate: 1 infected individual transmits to 2 to 3 contacts. Exponential spread. American cities in 1945. 0 plague immunity, 0 plague surveillance, 0 stockpiled antibiotics. Streptomycin, first effective antibiotic against plague, wouldn't be mass-produced until 1946. 1 gram of plague-infected fleas released in urban area could initiate outbreak, eliminating 50,000 to 200,000 people before containment. I-400 class submarine deployment platform. Japanese engineers built a weapon American naval intelligence didn't believe existed until they captured one. Specifications that would make American submarine captains question their intelligence reports. Length: 400 feet. Larger than any U.S. submarine of the era. Stand at the bow, you couldn't see the stern through the internal compartments. Displacement: 6,560 tons submerged. Weight of 5 Liberty ships compressed into submarine hull. Range: 37,500 nautical miles at 14 knots. Could circumnavigate globe 1.5 times without refueling. Aircraft hangar: watertight, 115 feet long, housed 3 Aichi M6A1 Seiron floatplanes. Launch catapult. Hydraulic, 85-foot rail. American submarine designers thought this was impossible. Standard U.S. fleet submarine range, 11,000 nautical miles. Size, 311 feet. 0 aircraft capacity. What U.S. naval intelligence didn't know until August 45. Japan had built 18 of these submarines specifically to strike Panama Canal and American coastal cities. Aichi M6A1 Seiron specifications. Range: 740 miles. Bomb capacity: 1,850 pounds. Launch to target time: 90 minutes at cruise speed. Collapsible wings, folded inside submarine hangar, assembled on deck in 7 minutes. Weapon system integration. I-400 submarine could surface 200 miles off California coast, beyond U.S. destroyer patrol range. Launch 3 Seiron aircraft. Each aircraft carried 1 ceramic Uji bomb containing 15 kilograms plague-infected fleas, 150 million individual fleas. Target cities: San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Release altitude: 500 feet. Ceramic bomb shatters on impact, disperses fleas across 2 square kilometer area. Then submarines submerged and escaped before coastal defenses responded. By the time Americans identified what happened, 72 hours later, when first plague symptoms appeared, outbreak would be exponential. Imperial General Headquarters, Tokyo, April 2, 1945, 3 weeks after USS Franklin devastation. Lieutenant General Yoshijiro Umezu, Chief of Army General Staff, convened classified meeting. Attendees: General Hajime Sugiyama, Minister of War; General Shiro Ishii, Unit 731 Commander; Vice Admiral Takijirō Ōnishi, Vice Chief of Naval General Staff; Admiral Soemu Toyota, Commander-in-Chief, Combined Fleet. Topic: Final defensive operations against Operation Downfall. Ishii's presentation, reconstructed from War Crimes Tribunal testimony, 1947. Unit 731 has stockpiled sufficient biological agents to neutralize American invasion force. Plague-infected fleas, 400 kilograms, operational. Delivery system: I-400 class submarines equipped with Seiron aircraft. Proposed targets: San Diego Naval Base, San Francisco port facilities, Seattle Boeing production plants. Projected casualties: 200,000 to 500,000 American military and civilian losses within 60 days of deployment. Strategic outcome: American public support for invasion collapses. Negotiated peace becomes possible. General Umezu's response: biological weapons violate international law. Deployment risks total Allied commitment to unconditional surrender with no negotiation. Ishii's counter: Americans firebombed Tokyo. 100,000 civilians lost in one night. They have not followed rules of war. Neither should we. Silence in the conference room. Then General Sugiyama spoke. Authorize operational planning. Deployment pending final cabinet approval. Admiral Toyota authorized submarine deployment. Vice Admiral Ōnishi said nothing. What happened in the next 48 hours would determine whether 200,000 Americans lived or were eliminated, and Ōnishi couldn't tell anyone his plan. What Ishii didn't know: Ōnishi had spent previous month reviewing casualty reports from Iwo Jima and Okinawa, reading letters from submarine commanders who'd watched kamikaze pilots, aged 17 to 22, crash into American destroyers, calculating how many Japanese civilians would be lost in homeland invasion. And Ōnishi had concluded Japan had already lost. Question wasn't whether Japan would surrender. Question was how many people would be lost before surrender became inevitable. Biological weapons against American cities wouldn't prevent invasion, would only guarantee America's response would be total annihilation. But Ōnishi couldn't say this openly in Imperial General Headquarters. Questioning war continuation equaled treason, so he said nothing, and walked out of meeting, knowing he would have to stop Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night himself. Vice Admiral Takijirō Ōnishi, age 53, born Ashida, Hyogo Prefecture, 1981, population 8,000, family, sake brewery owner, middle class. Entered Imperial Japanese Naval Academy, 1909, graduated 8th in class of 179, aviation specialist. Commanded carrier air groups in China, 1937 through 1940, tactical innovator. Developed dive bombing techniques that sank British cruisers HMS Cornwall and HMS Dorsetshire, April 1942. Respected by subordinates. Calm under pressure, methodical planner. Personal stakes: wife Seizuko, 2 daughters, age 18 and 14, living in Tokyo. American B-29 firebombing raids hitting Tokyo weekly. Family survival depended on war ending soon. October 1944, Ōnishi proposed kamikaze operations to Admiral Soemu Toyota. Concept: convert obsolete aircraft into guided missiles using volunteer pilots. Target: American carriers off Philippines. Toyota's response: proposal wastes trained pilots. Aircraft without pilots cannot return for rearmament and reuse. Request denied. Naval General Staff assessment: kamikaze operations contradict fundamental principle of preserving pilot training investment. One pilot represents 18 months training, 50,000 yen cost. Aircraft represents 30,000 yen cost. Trading both for single ship hit is poor resource allocation. Standard doctrine stated, preserve experienced pilots. They multiply effectiveness of subsequent missions. Lost pilots provide zero future value. Ōnishi went around them. Direct appeal to Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, 2nd Fleet Commander. Authorized first kamikaze attack without Tokyo approval. October 25, 1944, Battle of Leyte Gulf. Result: kamikaze hit carrier USS St. Lo. Magazine explosion. Ship sank in 30 minutes. First carrier sunk by kamikaze. Naval General Staff reversed decision. Authorized kamikaze expansion. By war's end, 3,862 kamikaze sorties. 34 Allied ships sunk. 368 damaged. But Ōnishi saw what High Command didn't. Kamikaze operations proved Japan was willing to sacrifice everything, and nothing changed strategic outcome. Americans kept advancing. Now, April 1945, High Command wanted to escalate again. Biological weapons against American civilians. Ōnishi recognized the pattern. Desperation producing increasingly catastrophic decisions. Each escalation justified by the previous failure. No endgame except mutual annihilation. violation. Onishi had spent his career following orders, even orders that sent young pilots to certain fate, orders that turned desperate teenagers into guided missiles. But this order, Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, would eliminate hundreds of thousands of civilians and guarantee Japan's complete destruction. Onishi made his decision in that moment, April 1945, alone in his office. This was the order he wouldn't follow, even if it meant treason. April 10, 1945, Vice Admiral Ōnishi met privately with Captain Toshio Yamaguchi, logistics officer responsible for I-400 submarine deployment scheduling. Conversation reconstructed from Yamaguchi's post-war testimony, declassified 2003. Ōnishi, I-400 submarines require extended maintenance before operational deployment. Inspect all submarines. Any mechanical deficiency delays deployment pending repair. Yamaguchi, submarines are operational now, sir. Deployment can proceed immediately. Inspect again thoroughly. Yamaguchi understood. Ōnishi wanted delays. Any delays. Over next 30 days, Yamaguchi discovered maintenance issues. I-400, port propeller shaft vibration exceeding acceptable parameters. Yamaguchi's report to High Command. Submarine cannot deploy safely. Risk catastrophic failure at depth. Was it true? Maybe. Maybe not. But written on official Navy engineering forms, signed by qualified inspector, impossible to overrule. Required dry dock inspection. Estimated repair time, 21 days. 21 days closer to surrender. 21 days the weapons stayed docked. I-101, hydraulic catapult pressure fluctuation. Unsafe for aircraft launch. Repair requires replacement parts from Kure Naval Arsenal. Estimated delivery, 18 days. I-113, periscope seal degradation. High pressure test failed. Replacement seal fabrication, 14 days. Each discovery supported by technical documentation, each delay justified by safety regulations, impossible to overrule without appearing to disregard submarine crew safety. May 8, 1945. Germany surrendered. All Allied forces could now concentrate on Pacific Theater. Imperial General Headquarters meeting, May 10th. General Umezu, why are I-400 submarines still not deployed? Admiral Toyota, maintenance delays. Vice Admiral Ōnishi reports submarines require repair before operational deployment. Umezu, how long? Toyota, engineering assessment mid-July earliest. Ishii, Unit 731 commander, furious. Biological agents have limited viability. Flea population cannot be maintained indefinitely. Deployment must occur within 60 days. Ōnishi, present at the meeting, said, submarines will deploy when safe to operate. Sending defective submarines results in loss of crew and mission failure. Technically correct, impossible to argue against, but privately Ōnishi knew. He was buying time. Every week of delay brought Japan closer to surrender and increased probability Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night would never launch. But time was running out. Germany surrendered May 8th. All Allied forces now focused on Japan.
Ishii was furious. Submarines still not deployed, and Ōnishi's excuses were wearing thin. U.S. Naval Intelligence, Pacific Fleet Headquarters, Pearl Harbor, May 1945. Intelligence officers had no idea Japan possessed I-400 class submarines until July. No idea Japan had operational biological weapons. No idea Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night existed. What they did know, Japanese submarine activity had decreased dramatically since March. Fewer contacts, fewer attacks on merchant vessels. Assessment: Japanese submarine force depleted by attrition, no longer strategic threat. They were wrong. Japanese submarines weren't gone. They were waiting for orders to deploy the most catastrophic weapon of Pacific War. And one admiral was making sure those orders never came. August 6, 1945, 8:15 hours. Atomic bomb detonated over Hiroshima. 70,000 to 80,000 immediate casualties. Imperial General Headquarters emergency session, August 7th. General Umezu's assessment, American atomic weapon changes nothing. But it changed everything for Ōnishi. Because if Japan didn't surrender after atomic attack, High Command would authorize biological weapon as retaliation. Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, still waiting for deployment order. Submarines still under maintenance.
and Onishi's window was closing. But privately, senior officers recognized atomic bomb eliminated any possibility of negotiated peace. America had the ultimate weapon. Further resistance meant complete annihilation. August 9th, 1945. Second atomic bomb, Nagasaki. 40,000 immediate casualties. Same day, Soviet Union declared war on Japan, invaded Manchuria with 1.5 million troops. Two-front war, atomic weapons. Strategic situation, hopeless. Imperial General Headquarters meeting, August 10th. Emperor Hirohito attended. Unprecedented, spoke directly to military command. Continuation of war will result in total destruction of the Japanese nation. Accept Potsdam Declaration terms, surrender. Generals, silent. Even Umezu didn't argue.
But General Ishii, Unit 731 commander, made final attempt. Launch Operation Cherry Blossoms at night, immediately. Deploy all I-400 submarines. American biological casualties will force negotiation even after atomic attacks. Admiral Toyoda looked at Vice Admiral Ōnishi. Ōnishi said, I-400 submarines are not operational. Maintenance incomplete. Deployment impossible. Ishii, launch with existing operational status. Risk is acceptable. Ōnishi, no, risk is not acceptable. Submarines will not deploy. Direct contradiction of superior officer in Emperor's presence. Normally, court-martial, execution, but Emperor Hirohito spoke. Further military operations will not proceed. Prepare for surrender announcement. Operation Cherry Blossoms at night, canceled. I-400 submarines, never deployed. Biological weapons, never used. 200,000 American lives, saved by one admiral who said no. August 15th, 1945. Noon, Emperor Hirohito's surrender announcement broadcast across Japan. Unit 731, Pingfang Facility, Manchuria. General Ishii received surrender order at 14:30 hours. His immediate response, destroy everything. Over next 72 hours, Unit 731 personnel demolished all 150 buildings with explosives, eliminated remaining experimental subjects, estimated 400 prisoners, incinerated all biological agent stockpiles, destroyed documentation, 15 tons of research records burned, evacuated 3,000 personnel back to Japan. By August 18th, when Soviet forces arrived at Pingfang, only rubble remained. Soviets captured 12 Unit 731 personnel who couldn't evacuate in time. Interrogations revealed biological weapons program existed, but no physical evidence remained. Ishii escaped to Japan, went into hiding. Vice Admiral Ōnishi, August 15th evening, returned home to Tokyo. Wife Seizuko asked, "What happens now?" Ōnishi, "Japan will survive. War is over." But Ōnishi knew he'd directly contradicted orders from Imperial General Headquarters, prevented deployment of a weapon that High Command had authorized. In samurai tradition, this dishonor required ritual seppuku. August 16th, 0200 hours. Ōnishi committed seppuku in his home. Left note, "I apologize to souls of fallen aviators and their families. Japan's future lies with younger generation. Do not follow path of militarism." He passed at 0530 hours. Age 54. American occupation forces, September 1945, began discovering evidence of Japanese biological warfare program. U.S. Army Counterintelligence Corps report, September 22, 1945, declassified 1995. Interrogation of captured Japanese medical officers reveals extensive biological warfare research program. Facility location, Pingfang, Manchuria. Facility status, completely destroyed before Allied arrival. Documentation, none recovered. Personnel, majority escaped to Japan. Identities unknown. Investigation priority, locate General Ishii. Identify extent of biological weapons stockpile.
determine if deployment occurred. What Americans didn't know, deployment had been planned, authorized, and prevented by one admiral's bureaucratic resistance. If you're fascinated by how one military officer's quiet refusal prevented a biological catastrophe that would have eliminated hundreds of thousands, and how bureaucratic delay tactics saved more lives than any battle, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss next week's story about the submarine cook whose garbage observation sank 180 U-boats and changed anti-submarine warfare forever. These deep dives into declassified operations take weeks of archival research, cross-referencing tribunal testimony with intelligence documents, and knowing you're engaging with this content makes all the effort worthwhile. Now, what happened to General Ishii and Unit 731? October 1945, U.S. Army counterintelligence located General Shiro Ishii hiding in rural Japan. American interrogators faced decision: prosecute Ishii for war crimes, experimental subjects eliminated, estimated 3,000 to 10,000 people, or offer immunity in exchange for biological warfare research data. Soviet Union wanted Ishii extradited, had captured 12 Unit 731 personnel in Manchuria, wanted complete war crimes tribunal. U.S. decision: offer immunity. Reasoning: documented in SCAP Memorandum, October 30th, 1945. Declassified, 1995. General Ishii possesses biological warfare data unavailable through any other source. Human experimental results cannot be replicated under ethical research constraints. Soviet acquisition of this data would provide USSR with biological warfare advantage. Recommendation: grant immunity to Ishii and key Unit 731 personnel in exchange for complete data transfer. General Douglas MacArthur approved the deal. Ishii and 19 key Unit 731 scientists full immunity from war crimes prosecution. In exchange, complete research data from 9 years of experiments. Data included plague, anthrax, cholera, typhoid weapon development, frostbite studies, vivisection results, pressure chamber experiments. Ishii provided 10,000 pages of documentation, testified in classified hearings, never faced trial, passed away 1959, age 67, in Tokyo, natural causes, never imprisoned. Soviet Union protested vigorously, accused U.S. of protecting war criminals. Soviet Foreign Ministry Statement, December 1945. United States has granted immunity to Japanese officers responsible for mass elimination of Chinese and Russian citizens. This violates international justice and protects perpetrators of crimes against humanity. The Soviets were correct, but U.S. prioritized intelligence acquisition over justice. What Soviets didn't know: Ishii's data proved largely useless. Experimental methodology was scientifically invalid. Torture masquerading as research. Very little actionable intelligence gained. U.S. Army Medical Corps Assessment, 1947. Declassified, 1999. Unit 731 data provides minimal scientific value. Experimental protocols lack proper controls. Results are inconsistent and unreliable. Intelligence value does not justify immunity granted. America traded justice for bad science. Ishii got away with mass elimination for worthless data. But the weapon Ishii intended to deploy, Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, never launched. Not because of American military superiority, not because of atomic bombs. Because one admiral recognized deploying biological weapons would guarantee Japan's annihilation and quietly sabotaged the operation by delaying submarine deployment until surrender made it irrelevant. Within 90 days of Japan's surrender, U.S. military initiated classified review of Japanese biological warfare program. Document designated Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency Report 330B, Japanese Biological Warfare Program Assessment, dated November 15, 1945. Key findings: Japan possessed operational biological weapon delivery system, I-400 submarines plus Siren aircraft. Weapon deployment against U.S. cities was authorized by Imperial General Headquarters, prevented only by internal resistance. U.S. had zero biological weapon defense capabilities, no surveillance, no vaccines stockpiled, no containment protocols. Policy changes implemented. Change 1. U.S. Army established Biological Warfare Defense Program, Fort Detrick, Maryland, December 1945. Initial funding, $2 million. Personnel, 200 scientists and medical officers. Change 2. CDC, Communicable Disease Center, predecessor to Centers for Disease Control, established in Atlanta, Georgia, July 1946. Primary mission, epidemic surveillance and rapid response. Direct result of recognition that biological attack would appear initially as natural outbreak. Change 3. Military doctrine incorporated biological weapon threat assessment. Naval intelligence began tracking submarine deployments within 500 miles of U.S. coast. Any unidentified submarine contact treated as a potential biological weapons platform. Results within 24 months. 1946, Fort Detrick developed first plague vaccine production capability, 50,000 doses per month. 1947, CDC established plague surveillance network in 23 U.S. cities. Weekly reporting from all hospitals. 1948, Navy destroyed all captured I-400 submarines, prevented technology proliferation. Biological weapons went from theoretical threat to primary strategic concern within 2 years.
Joint Chiefs of Staff Assessment, 1948. Biological warfare represents greatest potential threat to American homeland security. Single submarine-launched biological attack could produce casualties exceeding conventional military invasion. Estimated impact of Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, if deployed. Historical epidemiology models. Johns Hopkins University, 1999 retrospective analysis. 200,000 to 500,000 American fatalities from plague outbreaks initiated by biological attack. 2 to 3 million symptomatic infections. Economic impact, $50 billion in 1945 dollars from quarantine, medical response, and productivity loss. Actual outcome, 0 fatalities, 0 infections, 0 economic impact. Vice Admiral Ōnishi's bureaucratic delay tactics, preventing submarine deployment for 120 days through maintenance scheduling, statistically saved 200,000 to 500,000 American lives. No other single decision by any officer in Pacific War prevented more casualties. And it wasn't a battlefield victory. It was paperwork, inspection reports, repair schedules, bureaucratic resistance disguised as regulatory compliance. Modern U.S. biological defense infrastructure descended directly from 1945 recognition of vulnerability. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, founded 1946 as direct response to biological weapon threat. Current budget, $15 billion per year. Epidemic Intelligence Service conducts real-time disease surveillance across all 50 states. Strategic National Stockpile maintains antibiotics and vaccines for biological attack response. Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, established 1998 but mission originated from 1945 bioweapon assessments. Monitors bioweapon proliferation, develops countermeasures to biological agents. Budget, $2.3 billion per year. U.S. military training includes biological warfare scenario as standard threat. Naval War College, Newport, Rhode Island. All submarine commanders complete Unconventional Weapons Deployment Module in Week 12. Case study, Japanese I-400 submarines and why U.S. Navy failed to detect them until after surrender. Army Command and General Staff College, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Biological Weapon Response is Required Curriculum. Case Study, Unit 731 Program and How Internal Resistance Prevented Deployment. Principle unchanged since 1945. Biological weapons don't require superpower resources or advanced technology. Single submarine with dedicated crew can deliver weapon producing mass casualties. Defense requires surveillance, rapid response, and pre-positioned countermeasures, all of which exist today because one admiral's quiet refusal revealed vulnerability America didn't know existed.
80 years later, 3 critical questions remain unanswered. Question 1. Did Emperor Hirohito know about Operation Cherry Blossoms at night before August 10th? Imperial General Headquarters documents show operation was authorized by military command, but whether Emperor Hirohito was briefed on specific biological weapons deployment before surrender decision is unclear. Some historians argue Hirohito must have known operation of this magnitude required imperial authorization. Others argue military command deliberately withheld information from Emperor to maintain plausible deniability. Evidence supporting Emperor's knowledge: Hirohito attended Imperial General Headquarters meetings April through August 1945. Multiple generals and admirals knew about operation. Japanese military tradition required imperial approval for strategic weapons deployment. Evidence suggesting Emperor didn't know. No direct documentary evidence places Hirohito in a meeting where Operation Cherry Blossoms was discussed. Post-war testimony from palace officials claims Emperor was shielded from morally questionable military operations. Hirohito's surrender speech emphasized new and most cruel bomb, the atomic weapon, no mention of biological weapons. Why documents don't clarify: most Imperial Headquarters records were destroyed in August 1945. Surviving documents were heavily censored during American occupation. Question 2. Was Vice Admiral Ōnishi acting alone, or did other officers support his sabotage? Ōnishi's maintenance delays required cooperation from multiple officers: logistics personnel, engineering staff, submarine commanders. Were they following orders or complicit in resistance? Captain Yamaguchi's testimony from 1947 suggests he understood Ōnishi wanted delays, but Yamaguchi claimed he believed delays were legitimate safety concerns, not sabotage. Other officers involved in I-400 maintenance were lost during war or committed seppuku after surrender, their motivations unknown. Possibility: organized silent resistance within Japanese Naval Command. Evidence supporting multiple submarine commanders reported mechanical issues simultaneously, statistically unlikely if issues were genuine. Evidence against: no documentation of coordinated resistance, no testimony from participants claiming organized effort. Why enemy archives don't confirm? Soviet forces captured some Unit 731 personnel and Manchuria-based documents, but submarine deployment records were destroyed in Japan before occupation. Question 3. Would Operation Cherry Blossoms at night have succeeded if deployed? Tactical assumptions in operation plan. I-400 submarines could approach within 200 miles of California coast undetected. Saran aircraft could penetrate coastal defenses. Ceramic Uji bombs would effectively disperse plague-infected fleas. Plague outbreak would achieve 200,000 plus casualties before containment. But were these assumptions valid? Counterarguments from military analysts. Submarine detection. By August 1945, U.S. Navy had extensive submarine detection network. Approach within 200 miles of major port without detection, unlikely. Aircraft interception. Coastal air defense radar coverage extended 300 plus miles offshore. 3 slow-moving float planes appearing on radar would trigger fighter interception. Survivability: low. Biological weapon effectiveness. Plague outbreaks in temperate climate, California summer, less severe than tropical or subtropical climates like the China experiments. American urban sanitation, medical infrastructure superior to rural Chinese villages. Casualty estimates might be dramatically overstated. Containment. U.S. had plague experience from natural outbreaks, San Francisco, 1900 through 1904. Public health infrastructure could implement quarantine faster than Japanese planners assumed. Why physical evidence contradicts testimony? Captured I-400 submarines, when inspected by U.S. Navy engineers, showed significant mechanical deficiencies beyond what Ōnishi's maintenance reports claimed. Some historians argue submarines were never truly operational. Ishi's deployment plan was based on optimistic assessment of submarine capabilities. Naval historians debate: was it brilliant sabotage by one admiral or realistic assessment of impossible mission? What's your assessment? Was Operation Cherry Blossoms at night prevented by Ōnishi's resistance or doomed to fail regardless? They called biological weapons the ultimate deterrent. They said one submarine could change the war's outcome. They were wrong, not because the weapon couldn't eliminate hundreds of thousands, because one admiral recognized that deploying it would only guarantee total annihilation. The genius wasn't inventing a devastating weapon. The genius was recognizing that not using the weapon, even when ordered, required more courage than any battle. Sometimes the most important decisions aren't made on battlefields. They're made in maintenance offices, with inspection reports and repair schedules, by one person who says, "No, not this." Vice Admiral Takijirō Ōnishi saved 200,000 American lives, not with tactics, not with heroics, with paperwork, and the moral courage to refuse orders when following them meant catastrophe. His name appears in no monuments, no medals. Most people have never heard of him, but 200,000 Americans came home in 1945 because of a decision he made in April. That's legacy. If this story of moral courage disguised as bureaucratic procedure made you think differently about how history's pivots happen, drop a comment. What would you have done in Ōnishi's position? Follow orders and hope biological attack forces negotiation, or refuse and face treason charges? And if you want more deep dives into the classified decisions that changed wars, the choices made in offices, not battlefields, subscribe. Next week, the ultra-intelligence officer who deliberately let a convoy get destroyed to protect the secret that won World War II. 40,000 tons of supplies, 200 sailors, one impossible decision. Thanks for watching. See you next week.